Hey, my dear horror story listeners, I hope you enjoy this story. If you like it, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So let's begin the story. I never thought my life would circle back to fast food, not after everything I'd done to get out of it. But when the layoffs hit the auto parts plant in late April, I didn't have much of a choice. Bills don't wait for pride, and my son's asthma medication wasn't cheap. So 2 weeks later, I found myself back behind a greasy counter at the KFC on Highway 31 in Graydon, Kentucky, a quiet town an hour south of Louisville, the kind of place that only made the news when a storm tore through or someone's kid got a college scholarship. I told myself it was temporary, just until something better came along. The store was small, squat building, red roof faded to pink, an old neon sign that still buzzed faintly even when the lights were off. The kind of KFC that smelled like fryer oil no matter where you stood. I worked closing shifts mostly with two others, Jessica, a college kid who handled drive-through, and Mike, a middle-aged line cook who limped on a bad knee from his time as a volunteer firefighter. Our manager, Carl, usually left by 8 after counting the drawers and half yelling about mop water. After that, the place was ours until midnight. It was a Friday in late June, hot, humid, the kind of night where the air clings to your skin. I was dragging myself through the shift, running on coffee and guilt. My ex had called earlier, saying our son Tyler needed new shoes for camp. I didn't tell her I was 2 months behind on rent. By 10 p.m., the dinner rush was long gone. The only sounds were the low hum of the AC and the faint squeak of Jessica's sneakers as she mopped the lobby. Mike was scraping the fryer baskets, humming some old country tune under his breath. It was one of those peaceful, forgettable nights until 10:41. The front door chimed. I looked up from wiping the counter, expecting a late straggler, maybe a trucker, or someone picking up an online order. But the man who walked in wasn't either. He looked ordinary at first, late 40s, maybe early 50s. Tall, lean, wearing a grey flannel shirt tucked into jeans that looked a size too big. His face was pale, almost grey in the fluorescent light. A red baseball cap shadowed his eyes. He didn't come to the counter, didn't look at the menu. He just walked straight to the farthest booth by the window, booth 7, and sat down. Jessica noticed first. "You know that guy?" she asked quietly. I shook my head. "Nope, never seen him before." She wrinkled her nose. "He's giving weird vibes. You think he's homeless?" "I don't know," I said, watching him. "Maybe." The man didn't move, didn't take out a phone, didn't look around, just sat there, staring straight ahead like there was something across the room only he could see. After 5 minutes, I started to feel uneasy. "Maybe he's waiting for someone," I said, though it sounded weak even to me. Mike glanced over from the fryer. "As long as he ain't causing trouble, leave him be," he said, probably just cooling off. That was Mike, calm, detached, the kind of guy who'd seen enough chaos to stop worrying about the small stuff. But something about that man made my stomach tighten, not because he looked dangerous, but because he looked wrong. At 10:57, I decided to walk over and ask if he needed anything. As I stepped closer, the man slowly turned his head toward me and smiled. It wasn't a normal smile, not friendly, not even forced. It was delayed, like his face was remembering how to do it. Too slow, too deliberate, stretching at the corners in a way that made every hair on my arms stand up. "Evening," I said, forcing a grin. "You want to order something?" He didn't respond, didn't blink, just kept smiling. "Sir?" His right hand rose, stiff, mechanical, and he pointed at me. No words, no sound, just pointed. "Hey man, you okay?" I asked, taking half a step back. He didn't answer. Jessica was watching from behind the counter, her face pale. "That's creepy as hell," she whispered. I turned back toward her. "I'm calling Carl." By the time I picked up the phone, the man had lowered his hand and turned back toward the window, still smiling. Carl didn't answer. Straight to voicemail. At 11:09, Jessica locked the front doors. "No one else is coming in," she said. "This guy's freaking me out." "Drive-through stays open," Mike said. "Company policy." But the headset on Jessica's shoulder stayed quiet. The man didn't move, didn't blink. By 11:20, I was checking the cameras, trying to keep my hands from shaking. The feed showed him sitting there, perfectly still. Then the drive-through headset crackled. Jessica jumped. "Welcome to KFC," she said, voice trembling. "Can I take your order?" Silence, then a faint breath, followed by laughter, not loud, not unhinged, just a low, steady chuckle that dragged across the speaker like static. Jessica yanked the headset off. "That's him," she said. "That's his laugh." I grabbed the headset. "If you're not ordering, please clear the lane," I said. Nothing, then a click. "Line dead." I checked the monitor. The drive-through lane was empty. No headlights, no movement. That's when I called the cops. "Non-emergency, this is Deputy Hayes," came the voice on the other end. "Hi," I said, my throat dry. "We've got a man in our store. Came in about 40 minutes ago. He hasn't ordered, hasn't moved. He just sits there. And he called our drive-through and laughed. Is he making threats? No, he's just acting strange." "We'll send someone to check," Hayes said. Relief washed over me. At 11:46, headlights flashed across the parking lot, a sheriff's cruiser. Deputy Hayes stepped out, tall guy, early 30s, polite face that looked too young to wear a badge. I met him at the door. "He's still here," I said. "Where?" I pointed to booth 7, but the booth was empty. "What?" Jessica whispered. "He was just there." Mike wiped his hands on a rag, frowning. "You sure he didn't leave?" "I swear," I said. "No one came out." "The doors are locked." Hayes checked the bathrooms, the stockroom, even the mop closet. Nothing. He came back, brow furrowed. "There's no one else here," Jessica's voice cracked. "I saw him." We all saw him. Hayes looked at the cameras next. I rewound the feed for him. There he was, 10:41, walking in, sitting in booth 7. Then at 11:31, the image glitched, just a flicker. And then he was gone. No footage of him standing, no door opening, no motion, just gone. Hayes leaned closer to the monitor, his jaw tightening. "You've had anything like this before?" I shook my head. "Never." He didn't say much after that, just copied the footage onto a flash drive, gave me a card, and told us to lock up. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smile. Slow, stiff, too human to be human. The next morning, Carl called me in early. He'd watched the footage 5 times. Then he looked at me and said, "You think this was some kind of prank?" "No," I said quietly. "Do you?" He didn't answer, just stared at the monitor like he was seeing something I couldn't. The next Friday, I worked the morning shift. Jessica closed that night. At 11:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from her. "He's back. Booth 7. Same time." I didn't reply. I just stared at the message, my pulse thudding in my ears. The next day, she told me he didn't move, didn't talk, just smiled. Exactly like before, and every Friday since someone's seen him. Always at 10:41, always booth 7, always that same empty stare. No crime, no reason, no sound. But last week something changed. I wasn't there. I'd quit by then, but Mike called me. His voice was shaking. "He finally ordered," he said. "What?" He looked right at me and said one thing. "What did he say?" Mike swallowed hard. He said, "You're next." I don't go near that KFC anymore, but sometimes when I drive past it on my way to work, I glance at the front window. And every once in a while, I swear I see him, sitting there in booth 7, smiling, just waiting. Story 2, I wasn't always the kind of person who double-checks door locks before bed. I used to believe the world, for the most part, was decent, predictable. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in northern Pennsylvania, where people waved from porches and you could still leave your car running while you ran inside for coffee. My dad was a mail carrier, my mom a dental assistant. I guess you could say I inherited their sense of small-town trust, the kind that makes you believe evil is something you read about, not something that sits 2 booths over at a KFC on a Tuesday afternoon. That illusion shattered 3 months ago. It was late July, hot, humid, the kind of heat that sticks to your skin like syrup. I was off work that day from the animal clinic where I work as a vet tech. My 10-year-old son, Evan, had a dentist appointment that morning. He'd been nervous all week about it, so I'd promised him a treat afterward. His choice. He picked KFC. I didn't even hesitate. He loved the place. The crispy chicken, the little fountain drink station with 100 soda options, and especially the small play area that somehow hadn't been torn down yet like so many others. We pulled into the KFC just past noon. The restaurant sat off a quiet road in Brookhaven, a working-class suburb just outside Scranton. It shared a parking lot with a shuttered Dollar General and a tire shop that looked like it hadn't seen a customer since 2020. The KFC itself wasn't fancy. Faded red roof, peeling white paint, and one of those giant Colonel Sanders signs that looked older than the town. But the food was decent, and the people who worked there were friendly enough. Evan unbuckled his seatbelt before I even parked. "Can I get the famous bowl this time?" he asked, peering over his glasses. "Yeah, sure," I said, smiling. "You earned it." He grinned, a tooth missing on one side from a recent baby tooth loss. "Extra gravy," he added proudly. When we stepped inside, the blast of cool air felt like heaven. The place was nearly empty. A couple of truckers sat near the window, one of them scrolling on his phone while picking at fries. A teenage girl mopped near the drink station, earbuds in. The fryers hissed somewhere in the back, and the faint smell of grease hung in the air. "Welcome to KFC," a young guy behind the counter said, his voice cheerful but tired. His name tag read Kyle. Evan waved at him and went straight to the self-order kiosk. He was tall enough now to reach it without me lifting him. I watched him tap through the options carefully, his tongue poking out slightly when he focused, a habit he'd had since preschool. While he ordered, I took out my phone and checked a text from my co-worker, Danielle. "Don't forget staff meeting tomorrow moved to 7:30 a.m. I replied quickly, "Got it, thanks," and slid the phone into my pocket. It couldn't have been more than 15 seconds. When I looked up, Evan wasn't standing at the kiosk anymore. At first, it didn't register. I scanned the nearby tables, the soda fountain, the booths by the window. He wasn't there. My brain told me he must have wandered to the play area or maybe the bathroom. Still, something in my chest shifted, just slightly, like a chair scraping across the floor. "Evan?" I called softly. No answer. I called again, louder this time. "Evan!" The girl mopping looked up, pulling out an earbud. "You looking for a kid?" she asked. "Yeah, my son. He's 10, glasses, blue shirt. You see him?" She frowned and pointed toward the back hallway. "Think he went that way?" I moved before she finished the sentence. The hallway stretched narrow and quiet, leading to the restrooms and the swinging double doors to the kitchen. I heard something, a voice, a boy's voice. I don't think I'm supposed to be back here." It was Evan. I pushed through the swinging doors. He was standing near the walk-in cooler, small shoulders stiff, facing a man I'd never seen before. The man wasn't dressed like an employee. No uniform, no apron, just a grey polo shirt, jeans, and a dark baseball cap pulled low. He was smiling, too calmly. His right hand was in his pocket, and in his left he held something, a red lollipop. "I told him there's a special treat for good customers," the man said casually, like we were discussing coupons. "Mum," Evan said, glancing at me, "he said there's a secret menu for kids." "Evan, come here." My voice came out sharper than I intended. The man raised his hand slightly. "Hey, no harm done. Just chatting with the little guy. Didn't mean to scare anyone. You don't work here," I said. He blinked, as if amused by my certainty. Does it matter? Just being friendly. Kyle, the employee from the counter, appeared behind me. "Sir, you can't be back here," he said, frowning. "Employees only." The man's smile didn't fade. He stepped back slowly, hands still raised. "Relax, I'm leaving." And he did. He turned, walked right out the back exit, the one marked "Employees Only," and disappeared into the blinding sunlight. I stood there frozen, holding onto Evan's arm so tightly he winced. I didn't even realize it until he whispered, "Mum, it's okay." It wasn't. Kyle locked the door, his hands shaking slightly. "Do you want me to call the manager?" he asked. "Call the police," I said. The officers arrived 15 minutes later. A woman named Officer Graves took my statement, while another, Henderson, checked the security feed in the back office. Evan sat beside me in a booth, clutching his soda cup but not drinking from it. "What did the man say to you?" Graves asked him gently. Evan hesitated. "He said, he used to work here," he said quietly. "He said he knows all the secrets. He said there's a special cookie that only smart kids get." My stomach turned. "Did he touch you?" she asked. Evan shook his head. "No, he just smiled a lot." When Henderson returned from the back, his face was pale. "You'll want to see this," he told Graves. I followed them to the security monitor. The footage showed the man slipping in through the rear delivery door, barely a minute after an employee had gone out to take trash to the dumpster. He waited by the storage shelves for nearly 5 minutes before moving toward the main kitchen area. He didn't wander, he didn't hesitate. He stood still, watching the door, like he knew exactly where and when someone might walk through. "Looks like he's done this before," Henderson muttered. The footage cut off as the man exited through the back door again, his face angled just enough to avoid a clear view. For weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about it, about how easily it happened, about how close it came. I kept replaying those 20 seconds in my head, the 15 I spent texting Danielle, the 5 I spent looking for napkins. I'd always thought being careful meant locking doors, crossing streets with the light. I never thought I needed to guard every second of my son's life, like it might vanish if I blinked. Evan didn't sleep in his room for almost a month. He'd wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. and sneak into my bed, whispering, "Can I stay here tonight?" I never said no. His therapist said it was temporary anxiety from an interrupted sense of safety. I called it what it was, terror wrapped in a child's silence. A few weeks later, Officer Graves called. "We pulled partial prints from the back door," she said. "Nothing in the system." "But there's something else. You might want to hear this." My heart sank. "What is it?" "There was a similar case last year in Ohio. Man entered through the back of a fast food restaurant, tried to lure a child. Same setup. Back door, midday, calm demeanor. Never caught. I swallowed hard." "You think it's the same person?" Graves hesitated. "I think it could be." By September, the world looked normal again, at least on the surface. Evan went back to sleeping in his room. He laughed more. The night terrors faded. We even started doing our weekend outings again. Parks, ice cream, the library. But I changed. I noticed everything now. The man sitting alone in his car near the school drop-off line. The delivery van idling behind the grocery store. The sound of doors unlocking in parking lots. Danger didn't look like monsters anymore. It looked like normal people who waited for seconds to turn into openings. One evening, as I tucked Evan into bed, he asked, "Mum, what do you think he wanted?" I froze. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said carefully. "Something that didn't belong to him." He was quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, "If you hadn't come when you did, he would have taken me, right?" I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to lie, but I couldn't. So I just brushed his hair from his face and said, "He didn't." That's what matters. After he fell asleep, I sat in the dark, staring at the baby monitor on my nightstand. I hadn't used it in years, but I dug it out that week just to hear the faint hum of his breathing. Around midnight, I went downstairs to lock the doors again. I caught a reflection in the window, a shadow standing at the edge of the street, still, watching, the shape of a man in a baseball cap. I blinked, and he was gone. Maybe it was just my imagination, or maybe it wasn't. But every time I drive past that KFC now, I feel it again. That tilt in the air, that slow distortion that tells you the world isn't as safe as you thought. And I realize something I never understood before. Evil doesn't always break in. Sometimes it walks through the back door and smiles while it does. Story 3. I used to think the night shift made me tougher. It didn't. It just made me tired enough to mistake danger for coincidence. I was 32 that summer, August 2022, living in a one-bedroom apartment above a nail salon off Cypress Avenue in Redding, California. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The carpet was old, the air conditioner barely worked, and the pipes in the bathroom made that hollow banging noise whenever I ran hot water. But after my divorce, quiet was a luxury I could afford. I worked private security for a contractor that handled warehouses and storage facilities around the Shasta Lake Industrial District. It wasn't glamorous. 10-hour shifts in steel-toe boots, logging plate numbers of delivery trucks, and staring at camera feeds until my eyes burned. But it paid the rent and kept me from thinking too much about the things I'd lost. My marriage, my house, the idea that I had control over my own life. That morning, August 12th, I got off at 5:30 a.m. The air was already warm, the kind of sticky Northern California heat that smells faintly like asphalt and dust. My shift partner, Marcus, had called out again, and I was too broke to turn down the overtime. I was running on caffeine and stubbornness. When I clocked out, I realized I hadn't eaten since the night before. My hands were shaking just enough that I knew I needed food before bed. So I decided to swing by the KFC on Hilltop Drive, the only 24-hour one in town. They'd just started testing a breakfast bowl menu, and honestly, curiosity beat exhaustion. I remember how still the streets felt, the kind of silence that only comes right before sunrise. No traffic, no chatter, just a faint hum of streetlights and the smell of fryer grease drifting across the parking lot. The lot was almost empty when I pulled in. I parked in the side area near the dumpsters, thinking I'd be out of the way. There was only one other car, a beige Corolla, and a white Chevy van parked farther out, half hidden behind the drive-through sign. The van's windows were fogged from condensation, and there was a half-empty Gatorade bottle on the hood. Inside, the place was quiet. No music, no chatter, just the hum of refrigerators and the faint hiss of oil from the kitchen. A teenage employee was mopping near the soda fountain, earbuds dangling from his ears. "Morning," I said. He gave me a nod without looking up. I ordered a sausage biscuit bowl and a black coffee, paid in cash, and sat down in a corner booth by the window. The bulb above me flickered every few seconds, making the room feel colder than it was. That's when I noticed him. 3 booths down, facing the window, sat a man in a red jacket. Not a bright red, more like faded crimson, the kind of colour you get from years of washing. He had a paper coffee cup in front of him, but hadn't touched it. He was staring straight ahead, motionless. His hands were folded neatly on the table. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe another night shift worker like me. Maybe just someone too tired to move. But something about him didn't sit right. He was too still. His posture was perfect, like someone frozen mid-thought. When you work security long enough, you learn to recognize tension, not in words, but in stillness. Stillness hides intent. I looked away, turned my attention to the muted TV above the counter. Local news, traffic, weather, wildfire warnings, the usual. My food came out, and I dug in, trying to shake that uneasy itch in my chest. Then I heard footsteps. The man in the red jacket stood and walked past my booth. He wasn't in a hurry, slow, deliberate steps. He stopped near the front counter, adjusted his jacket zipper, then turned toward me. "Morning," he said. His voice was calm, friendly even. I looked up, forcing a smile. "Hey, you drive that black Malibu out there?" My heart ticked once, hard. "Yeah, why?" He nodded toward the window. "Looks like someone backed into your rear bumper. Might want to check it before they take off." Something about the way he said it. It wasn't casual, it was too rehearsed. "Did you see it happen?" I asked. He smiled slightly. "Nah, just noticed the dent. Figured I'd tell you I hadn't heard a car come or go since I parked. And from where he'd been sitting, he couldn't have seen my bumper at all. The dumpsters blocked that angle." I felt my body tighten. Years of security work don't make you brave, just cautious. I forced a small nod. "Appreciate it." "I'll take a look after I finish eating." He paused, like he hadn't expected me to say no. Then he shrugged and walked toward the exit. The door chime dinged once. Through the window, I watched him step outside. He didn't go to a car. He turned left, disappearing behind the building, toward the side lot, toward that white van. My pulse kicked up. I stood slowly and walked to the counter. The kid had taken out one earbud. "Everything okay, sir?" I nodded toward the door. "You see that guy in the red jacket?" He blinked. "What guy?" "The one who just walked out." The kid frowned. "You were the only one in here since I came on at 5. That hit me hard enough that I forgot to answer. I turned and looked back at the window. The van was still there, motionless. I stepped outside anyway. The morning light had started to creep over the horizon, that pale golden wash that makes everything look hazy and harmless. But the air felt wrong. I walked around the side of the building, pretending to stretch, pretending to check my car. The van sat maybe 30 feet away. Its windshield was fogged, no plates. That's when I heard it, a metallic sound, a soft click, like a latch easing open. I froze. Then I did something I still can't explain. I smiled, turned on my heel, and walked straight back inside like nothing happened. The kid looked confused when I came back in. "Everything good?" "Get your manager," I said quietly. "Right now." A minute later, a woman in her late 30s came from the kitchen, still tying her apron. "Something wrong?" I lowered my voice. "You've got cameras on the side lot, right?" "Yeah, why?" "There's a van back there, no plates. Some guy tried to get me outside to look at my car. I don't think he's alone." Her face changed instantly, tight, alert. "Stay here." She disappeared into the back office. The kid locked the side door. When she came back 2 minutes later, she looked pale. "He's been here since 4, she said. "He came in, sat at that same booth. Never ordered anything. When you walked in, he stood up. I felt my stomach twist." "What about the van?" "It's been parked there since at least 3 a.m. Nobody's gotten in or out. No plates, no movement." She picked up the phone and called the police. They arrived within 10 minutes. No lights, no sirens. 2 officers, both young. They asked me to describe the man. Shaved head, pale skin, red jacket, calm voice. They searched the lot, then the van. Inside they found duct tape, gloves, zip ties, and a small camera tripod, the kind you'd use for filming, but no one was there. The officers took my statement, asked if I wanted to file an official report. I did. They said they'd pull the footage and run the van's VIN. It came back unregistered, possibly stolen. Before they left, one of the cops, a guy named Tanner, looked at me and said, "You did the right thing staying inside. We've had 2 other reports like this. Same MO, guy tries to lure people outside. No one's been hurt yet, but..." He didn't finish that sentence. I went home, locked every door, and sat on the couch with my pepper spray in one hand and my phone in the other. I didn't sleep that day. I couldn't. I stopped by that KFC a week later to thank the manager. She told me the cops hadn't found the man, but she mentioned something that made my blood run cold. 2 mornings before my incident, another customer, a young nurse getting off her hospital shift, had been approached by a man in a red jacket. Same story. Claims she'd dropped her wallet outside. She didn't go with him either. The police think he was targeting early morning customers, exhausted people running on autopilot. Every time I replay it in my head, I keep thinking about his face. Not the details, those fade, but the calmness, the ease in his voice. He didn't look dangerous. He looked normal. That's what made it so terrifying. Now I don't stop for fast food after my shift. I eat before I leave work. I park under streetlights. I check my back seat before unlocking the door. And when someone I don't know tells me I dropped something, or that I should step outside to look at something, I keep my damn feet planted. Because the truth is, monsters don't always lurk in dark alleys. Sometimes they sit 3 booths down in a red jacket, smiling like they're just being neighborly. And sometimes all it takes to meet one is a craving for breakfast. Story 4. I never thought I'd still be working at a fast food restaurant at 29. When I first clocked in at the KFC off Maple Avenue in Maplewood, Missouri, it was supposed to be a temporary gig, a few months to keep money coming in after I left community college. I told myself it was just until I figured things out. That was 6 years ago. I don't hate the job, not exactly. I've made peace with it. It's honest work. I manage my shifts, I take care of my crew, and I keep the place running clean and safe. That's more than a lot of people can say these days. Still, there are nights, especially during the closing shift, when I catch myself staring at the fryer timer lights, wondering how I ended up here. My name's Ethan Ward. I'm the night manager at KFC Maplewood, the one next to the Shell station and across from the old Pruitt's Hardware that's been going out of business since before I was born. We close at 11 p.m. and by midnight, I'm usually done. Registers counted, floors mopped, fryers cleaned, doors locked. The night I'm about to tell you about broke that rhythm. And since then, I haven't felt safe in that building again. That Thursday, October 12th, 2023, started normal enough. We were short-staffed because Jenna, our usual closer, called out last minute. Said her boyfriend's car broke down in Colombia, so it was just me, Derek, our cook, been here almost 3 years, and Talia, a new hire barely 2 weeks in. She was 19, quiet, polite, the kind of kid who said, "Sir," even when you told her not to. She was learning fast, though. By 10:30, the store had that closing shift calm I love. No more rushes, no more fryer beeps, just the hum of the cooler and the soft drag of the mop bucket. Derek was scrubbing down the fry station, muttering along to his Bluetooth speaker playing old-school R&B. Talia was at the front counter, wiping surfaces and restocking sauces. I was in the manager's office, counting the till. The drawer was short by $2.19, which wasn't a huge deal. I figured a misky during a busy order earlier. I texted Derek to double-check his void slips, then started logging it in the system. That's when I heard it. A bang. Loud enough to cut through the quiet. It came from the lobby. I froze for a second, thinking maybe Talia dropped something, a tray or a mop handle. But then came silence. Not normal silence. The kind that presses on your ears, like when the power goes out and the air feels wrong. I stood up. "Talia," I called out. "Everything okay out there?" No response. I stepped out of the office. The lights in the lobby were still on, but something about the space felt altered, like the air was heavier. The usual fried oil smell had a strange sourness to it, almost metallic. The mop bucket was tipped over, water spreading slowly across the tiles. But no Talia. "Derek," I called toward the back. "Yo!" he shouted back. "Still on fry clean?" "What's up?" "Talia's gone." "What you mean gone?" "I don't see her. She was just out here." He poked his head out from the back. "She probably ran to the restroom," he said. I walked around the counter toward the drink machine. There's a corner that gives a partial view of both bathrooms. The women's door was cracked open. I knocked lightly. "Talia? You good?" No answer. I pushed the door open a few inches. The lights were on, the stalls were empty. Nothing looked out of place, just that same sour smell, stronger now. I backed out, uneasy. Then Clear as anything, I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Not sneakers, something sharper, like heels. Click, click, click. They came from the kitchen. I turned fast, calling out, "Derek!" He stepped out of the dish area, wiping his hands. "Yeah? You walking around just now?" He frowned. "No, I've been right here, man." "Why?" I hesitated. "You didn't hear that?" "Hear what?" I looked past him. Nothing. Just the metallic shimmer of stainless steel and the faint smell of bleach. "Where's Talia?" he asked. "I don't know." We stood there in silence, listening. Nothing. "Maybe she clocked out early," Derek suggested. "Her phone's still up front," I said, "and her jacket." He came with me to check. The lobby was empty. Talia's phone was sitting face down on the counter, still plugged into the charger. Her KFC visor lay beside it. Then Derek pointed. "Yo, what's that?" There were footprints on the wet tile, but not ours, too small, barefoot. You could see the full shape, the heel, the arch, each toe, leading away from the puddle of mop water toward the hallway that led to the walk-in freezer. "Tell me she didn't go back there barefoot," Derek muttered. "She didn't," I said quietly. We followed the trail. Each step we took made the smell worse, that sour metallic odor, like damp copper pipes mixed with rot. The footprints stopped at the freezer door. Derek's voice was barely above a whisper. "Man, if she's playing around, I swear—" I grabbed the handle. It was cold. "You sure you want to open that?" he said. I nodded and pulled. The door swung open with a heavy hiss. The freezer lights flickered once, then steadied. Racks of frozen chicken and biscuits, frost coating every surface. No Talia. But on the inside of the door, written in the frost, were two words, "Help me perfectly clear," as if carved with a fingertip. Derek stepped back, muttering, "Nah, man. Nah, we're not doing this." I shut the door fast, my hands shaking. "We need to check the cameras." The office felt smaller than usual when we got there. I pulled up the DVR feed and scrubbed back to 10:25 p.m. The lobby camera showed Talia mopping near the counter. Then she turned slightly, like she heard something, and looked toward the back of the restaurant. Then, in one frame, she was there. In the next, she was gone. No exit, no blur, just gone. The mop fell over by itself a few seconds later. Derek leaned in close, whispering, "That's not real." It can't be real. I switched to the kitchen camera, nothing unusual, but the hallway camera near the freezer caught something else. At 10:32, the light flickered, and for half a second, in that static blur, there was a figure, pale, long hair, standing right outside the freezer door. Then it was gone. Derek stepped back, his breathing uneven. "Call 911. The cops came in less than 10 minutes. 2 cruisers, lights flashing. Sergeant Lopez took our statements while his partner, Officer Brandt, walked through the store. They searched the freezer, storage, bathrooms, even the dumpster out back. No sign of her, no forced exits, no broken locks, no back door openings on camera. Her car was still in the lot. When Lopez came back, he looked at me like he didn't believe a word I said. "You're sure she didn't leave the building?" "I'm sure," I said. "We watched the footage." They took copies of the camera files, wrote up a report, told us to close for the night. We stood in the parking lot while they packed up. I couldn't shake the image of that message on the freezer door, "Help me." The next day, corporate called. They sent an area supervisor to inspect procedures. They questioned me, Derek, even the morning crew. Checked every inch of that store. Nothing. They wiped the freezer clean, replaced the light in the back hallway, changed the DVR system, claiming the feed had corrupted frames. But that night, when I went back for inventory count, I swear I heard it again. Click, 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 from the hallway. I called out, "Who's there?" No response. When I walked toward the sound, the air felt colder. The metal shelves seemed to hum. And on the freezer door, in faint condensation, like a breath had formed the letters, it said, "Still here." Weeks passed. Talia's face was on missing posters around town. Local news did a short story. Employee vanishes during night shift at Maplewood KFC. They called it a mystery disappearance. Derek quit 2 weeks later. Told me he couldn't even drive past the store without his hands shaking. I stayed. Not out of bravery, just stubbornness. I needed the paycheck. Rent doesn't care about ghosts. But the nights kept getting worse. The freezer started dripping water even when the seal was fine. The smell, that same sour metallic odor, returned no matter how many times we deep cleaned. And sometimes when I'd close alone, I'd hear movement in the kitchen, soft, deliberate, click, click, click. Once I saw something move in the reflection of the drive-through window, a figure, long hair, standing by the freezer. But when I turned, there was nothing. I told myself it was stress, grief, maybe guilt. Then last January, the morning shift texted me something that made my blood run cold. A photo. The freezer door covered in frost again. 3 words written across it, "You left me." Corporate sent maintenance the next day. They said condensation from a faulty valve caused the frost. But deep down, I knew better. I asked to transfer to another store. The request is still pending. Until then, I still close 3 nights a week. Same shift, same checklist, same building. And every night when the lights dim and the fryer timers go quiet, I wait for it. That soft, steady rhythm of footsteps. Click, click, click. Always just out of sight. And sometimes, if I linger near the freezer too long, I can see faint letters forming in the frost. New ones this time. Not done. I wipe them away before anyone sees. But I know she's still there. Somewhere between the hum of the cooler and the dark stretch of that back hallway, waiting. And I can't shake the feeling that one of these nights, when I check the cameras again, she won't be the one missing. Story 5. I never thought a minimum wage job would nearly kill me. When I first started at the KFC in Hollow Creek, Kansas, it was supposed to be something simple, just a way to save for my first car, maybe a little independence from my mum. I was 16, restless, and didn't really have much going for me. My mum, Denise, worked double shifts as a CNA at the nursing home off Route 83. My dad wasn't around, never really was. I grew up watching her burn herself out just to keep us fed. So when I saw the "now hiring evenings and weekends" sign taped on the KFC's front window, I figured, why not? Hollow Creek wasn't much. A strip of gas stations, a faded bowling alley, and a Walmart that shut down after COVID and never reopened. Most of the businesses looked half dead, but the KFC, right at the corner of Birch and Weston, still had cars in the lot every evening. Families after church, construction guys grabbing dinner, kids like me just trying to make a few bucks. The first day I walked in, the place smelled like fryer oil and bleach. The floors were slick no matter how much you mopped. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. And the manager, a guy named Vince Porter, met me at the counter with a clipboard and a look that said I was already wasting his time. "You ever worked food before?" he asked, flipping through papers without looking up. "No, sir." "You get nervous around heat or knives?" "No, sir." "Good. We'll start you back of house. You're training with Louise tonight. Clock in, hairnet, gloves, black shirt. Don't talk much, don't screw around. You stay out of the cooler unless I say otherwise. Got it?" Got it. That was my introduction to fast food. Luis was 21, had a sleeve tattoo of barbed wire, and a laugh that made everything sound like a dirty joke. He wasn't bad though, taught me shortcuts, showed me how to avoid Vince's temper, and how to survive Friday rush hours without losing your mind. Then there was Mara, who worked the register. 17, sarcastic, always chewing gum, always blasting music in one earbud. I liked her right away. She made the shifts go faster. But Vince, he was the problem. He had this weird way of talking, too calm, too flat. Like everything he said was rehearsed. He'd stand behind you silently while you worked, just watching. Once I turned around and nearly dropped a basket of chicken because he was right there, breathing down my neck. "Keep the lid down on the fryer," he'd said, monotone. "We don't want accidents." He smiled when he said accidents. I laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, okay." That was the thing about Vince. He wasn't loud or mean. He was just off. Everyone felt it. Mara once whispered to me during a slow shift, "You ever notice how he never eats?" Like, ever? I've worked here a year, never seen him take a single bite. I shrugged. Maybe he's just weird. She leaned closer. Weird, yeah. But last summer a kid named Jonah worked here, same position as you. He went missing one night after closing. Guess who was the last one to see him? Vince, she nodded. Cops said he probably ran away. His backpack was gone. But still I laughed it off at the time, but it stuck with me, especially because Vince never mentioned Jonah. Ever. And yet, every time he looked at me, it felt like he was measuring something. My work, my reactions, my nerves. The weeks went by. I got faster on the line, started to feel like part of the team. We'd joke around after close, blasting music while mopping floors, throwing fries at each other. The store itself wasn't terrible, except the walk-in freezer. That place felt wrong. The first time I stepped inside, the air was so cold it felt alive. The fluorescent light flickered like it was struggling to breathe. You could see your own breath curl upward in fog. The latch on the inside was heavy, the kind that shut with a clunk deep in your chest. Louise told me, "You ever get stuck in here, you're screwed. That latch jams sometimes." He grinned when he said it, but it didn't feel like a joke. It was February when it happened. My 16th birthday. I didn't tell anyone, didn't see the point. Mum had to work an overnight, and I didn't have friends outside of KFC. It was a Friday night, busy, greasy, loud. Vince was in the office doing inventory, which usually meant staring at the security monitors for hours. Louise had called out. Mara was on register. That left me, Vince, and a new dishwasher named Connor. We hit a rush around 6, orders piled up. The fryer was screaming. I was sweating, hands trembling from the pace. "Kid," Vince barked from behind the counter. "We're out, attenders. Grab a box from the walk-in." "Got it." I grabbed my jacket and headed toward the back. The hallway was dim, the light bulb above the freezer door buzzing faintly. The air smelled like old oil and something faintly metallic. I pulled the handle, stepped in, and the door closed behind me with that familiar thud. Cold, always so damn cold. I found the box near the bottom shelf, reached for it. That's when I heard it, the soft click of the door latch, followed by another sound, a shuffle, slow, dragging. "Connor," I called out. "That you?" Silence. My breath clouded in the air. I stepped toward the door. The handle wouldn't move. Frozen. I pulled harder. Still nothing. "Hey, door's stuck," I yelled, banging my fist. Nothing. Then, faintly, through the thick insulated walls, I heard it. Vince's voice. "Taylor, what did you do?" "What? Nothing. The door's jammed." He hummed. "You took something, didn't you?" "What? No, what are you talking about?" He chuckled. The sound echoed weirdly, distorted through the metal. "You kids always take something. Sauce packets. Time. Trust. Let me out," I shouted. "This isn't funny." The light flickered overhead. And then, behind me, something shifted. I froze. Slowly turned. In the far corner, near the bottom of the racks, something was moving. Not quick, just breathing. At first, I thought it was a bag slipping off a shelf, but the shape was wrong, too low, too smooth. The skin, or whatever it was, looked grey, frosted over. I backed up, heart hammering. "Who's there?" No answer. The shape moved again, crawled. The sound was like wet fabric sliding across tile. I bolted for the door, pounding on it until my knuckles burned. "Vince!" He didn't respond this time. The only sound left was my breathing, and that thing. The light flickered again, and I saw its outline clearer now, headless, hunched, limbs dragging behind it. The air stank like spoiled meat. I pressed my back against the door, shaking. The metal was freezing through my jacket. Then the light went out. Total darkness. Something brushed against my leg. I screamed. The sound bounced off the walls, thin and sharp. I scrambled backward, hands groping in the dark, slipping on frost. My phone. Yes, my phone. I fumbled it out of my pocket, hit the flashlight. The beam flickered across the racks, empty. Frost glistened on the metal. The floor was wet where I'd slipped. Then the light hit the far wall. There was a hole, a perfect square cut clean into the metal, leading into a tunnel of cracked concrete and dripping pipes. No way that was supposed to be there, but my fingers were numb, my lips were going blue. I couldn't stay. So I crawled toward it, dragging myself through the hole. The tunnel smelled like bleach and rust. The air was warmer but heavy, thick with humidity. My flashlight beam caught faded tiles, an old sink, and butcher hooks lining the walls. I moved forward on my hands and knees until I reached another room. It looked like some kind of underground prep area. Long tables, rusted shelves, and old cans of lard stacked like tombstones. In the middle of the room was a drain, wide, open, dark. Beside it lay a plastic name tag. Jonah. The name made my stomach drop. Footsteps echoed behind me, slow, heavy. I turned. Vince was standing in the doorway, no sunglasses this time. His eyes were bloodshot, his pupils huge. His shirt was smeared with something dark. "Do you see now?" he said softly. "Vince, what is this place?" He tilted his head. Before it was chicken, it was cattle. Before the Colonel, it was Hollow Creek Meat Company. They built it over the old drain rooms. Couldn't get rid of them. Some things linger. He stepped closer. I raised my flashlight, hands shaking. "Stay back." He smiled faintly. "You shouldn't have gone in the freezer." Something moved in the shadows behind him. That same wet shape, crawling, dragging. Vince turned slightly like he was listening to it. "It's hungry," he said. I threw the flashlight. It hit him square in the chest. I lunged forward, shoved him into the table, and bolted for the far door. It opened into the woods behind the restaurant. Cold night air hit my lungs like fire. I didn't stop running until I saw the glowing red KFC sign through the trees. I collapsed near the dumpster, sobbing. When the police came, I told them everything. The tunnel, the hole in the freezer, the drain, the body. They searched for hours. Found the freezer latch broken, yes, but the hole, gone. Just solid steel wall, no tunnel, no drain. Vince was missing. So was Connor. The health inspector shut the store down for 3 weeks. When it reopened, there was a new manager, new staff. I never went back. Mum made me quit. She said it was just stress, a panic attack from being locked in, but I know what I saw. A month later, I drove past the store one night. The neon sign buzzed, half burnt out. Through the back window, I could see the walk-in's light flicker faintly. And for just a second, I thought I saw someone's silhouette inside, someone crawling. Now, every time I smell fried chicken, my stomach turns. Not because of the grease or the memories of long shifts, but because I can still feel the cold air from that freezer, and I still hear Vince's voice whispering, "Some things linger,